So as somebody who just dropped 50 million power in Rise of Kingdoms, swarming flags and cities, I learned a thing or two about the best possible swarm marches when you are bringing a set swarm team. Now, these swarm marches are things that you should not be bringing to the field. They are not the best things for field pairings, okay? I want to get that out of the way. But they are the best possible things if you are just going to bring a set of marches, put them to the side, let your allies clear the field, and then when it's time to swarm the flag, you're hopping on it. Now, this is also not going to be a guide for your average player. I don't think the average player should be swarming flags, okay? It's painful, it's expensive, you're going to get a lot of deads, but sometimes it's necessary for your high spenders and high power whales to drop a lot of power with this method. So I'm going to go over the most efficient way to bring swarmers to any given flag in a 5 march, a 6 march, and a 7 march setup. Like I said, I don't think you should be swarming flags if you don't have maybe a full legendary set. It doesn't have to be, full iconic, but it needs to be fully legendary, and you got to have the wallet to back it up. So without stalling too much, let's hop into it. All right, so I'm not going to waste any of your time. I'm going to act like I am on a Rise of Kingdoms private server, and I have access to every single commander in the game, as well as the best gear in the game. Now, obviously, I understand that most people do not, and I'm going to go over that scenario as well as to what marches you can bring as replacements. But to start off, we're going to go over the best of the best, okay? So we have, firstly, our 5 march, okay? I would say that this is maybe in the beginning of KvK when your whales don't have as much tech and maybe don't have their 6 march unlocked, but this is the best 5 marches you can bring. Now, I did just go ahead and go over and make some presets here. Now, obviously, Zhuge the Sargon is not something that you want to bring, okay? But I went ahead and saved these 5 here, and I'll go over some different scenarios and replacements that you can make. So pairing number 1 is Guan with Skippy. So if we go into the Guan and Skippy pairing, I think it's pretty evident that this pairing stands the test of time, and the silence from Guan Yu is absolutely critical. It doesn't matter if he doesn't do as much damage single target. If you can swarm a garrison and it cannot fire off its active skill as fast as it can because it's generating that much rage because it is getting swarmed, this does work, okay? It also, I don't even know if you guys realize this, but Guan brings a debuff. I know, because he's a rally commander, I guess. No, but he does have a slight debuff of attack, which is very nice. Obviously, Skippy brings the health debuff. Skippy's an insane commander. You just bring this guy, okay? So your first pairing is Guan with Skippy. Your second pairing that you're going to bring is your I know this is kind of surprising, 1 cav march that you're going to bring if you are swarming with 5. So obviously Nevsky is crazy, defense reduction is crazy, he doesn't need an introduction, okay? Next up, now I don't have him finished, but next up is Justinian. So you are going to be bringing Nevsky with Justinian, okay? If you don't have Justinian, well, guess what? You can swap in your handy dandy Minamoto, okay? But like I said, we're talking best of the best, so we're going to say Justinian for now, and we will make the required adjustments later. If I can find my Justinian, I swear I have him somewhere. There we go. Okay, next up, we have Zhuge Liang with Herman, okay? Not a surprise, very, very powerful debuff with the Zhuge Liang bringing a 15% overall damage reduction, and the Herman casting uncleansable poison stacks, which is just really, really good. This will stand the test of time. Now, your fourth pairing that you're going to bring, I know, 2 archers. Isn't that crazy? Well, turns out that archers are just really good for hitting flags. You might have noticed in your recent KvKs that everyone is rallying with archers. That is because they do a ton of damage. So, Boudica, you basically need Boudica in your lineup. This debuff is so strong. It is so strong. When you have up to 12 marches hitting 1 flag, this 35% more skill damage debuff is just absolutely crazy. Similarly, you have the new commander, Ashurbanipal. Now, there is a situation where Ashurbanipal gets benched for Henry, okay? And we're going to go over that. So, Ashurbanipal has a debuff, okay, that reduces the target's normal damage done by up to 20% for 5 seconds, and it casts on every skill cycle, okay? So if you know that you are going to swarm a Gorgo, which is very popular right now, okay, you're going to bring the Ashurbanipal. Now, if you're hitting something like maybe a Jan Hera, okay, so not as much normal attack damage, but it does do a lot of skill damage, well, guess what? You can bring the Henry, because the Henry has a very nice skill damage taken increase debuff as well. Now, one thing that I want to add in is you would run the Henry primary over the Boudica, just because of the nature of how the talents work, and the counterattack damage reduction that you get from the Conquering Tree is very nice. And also, you want this march to tank. So it's not quite as nice if there's already a rally on the flag, but if you are swarming something like a city, well, you want to hit with the Henry and Boudica first, because this commander has a ton of counterattack damage when targeting a city or stronghold. So it's quite nice. But that being said, in most situations, you're just going to bring the Ashurbanipal, because you're probably not going to be tanking with the Henry anyway. So next up, we have our 5th march, and this is where all you Sargon investors are going to be very, very, very happy. Okay, we have Tariq with Sargon. Okay, this commander is just really, really insane. This damage output is crazy, and also this debuff has a 30% chance to reduce the normal damage of a target that they deal by 30% for 3 seconds. This is really, really good. It also has a rage reduction, which is absolutely insane when you're swarming something and they're going up to rage cap, but then getting reduced by 80. So they're not actually hitting rage cap. Anyway, this is really, really good. And obviously the Sargon odd debuff is just awesome, okay? Now, if you are investing in Sargon only to swarm, not to rally, not to field, not to anything, then you could actually take your Sargon to 5550 only, so that it never resets its own stacks. Now, do I recommend that? Is it practical? No. Just fully max out your Sargon. It's really not, it's not feasible to say like, oh, I'm just putting, 390 sculptures into something just to swarm. I don't know. That seems insane to me. But in the perfect scenario, I guess you could think about doing that. Okay, and so if we are then transitioning to what you should bring if you have 6 marches, well, this gets a little easy, because you just bring in your other cav, right? Everybody likes Huo, so we're going to bring in the Huo with Justinian or Minna combo. And now you might think, well, what about Joan? And so Joan is also a viable option. Generally, you can hit reinforcing marches with your AoE. I don't think that can go unnoticed or underrated. The Joan also buffs your nearby troops that are also swarming the flag. But that being said, you can bring in your Joan with your Nevsky. So you can run Nevsky with Joan, and you can run Huo with Justinian, or you just run your Nevsky with Justinian, and then your Huo with Minna, and then your Joan kind of sits on the bench if you're not worried so much about reinforcements like you are hitting a city, right? So again, maybe a flag, consider the Joan instead of the Minna, but if you are considering a city, just bring the Minna. It'll perform better than the Joan of Arc Prime. Again, this debuff is just kind of insane. 30% all damage debuff is just really good, and you can't really get behind Minamoto's single target damage, or can't give him cred, I guess, because he has so much single target damage. He just does a lot that you want while on a flag. Again, assuming that he's double relicked and all that good stuff. Now, as far as your 7th march, now this is the big whale stuff, okay? And we're going to go over 3 different variations, because I don't think you should ever be swarming with a Trajan Ethelfled. It's not going to do you well, okay? Let somebody else with a real legit damage march actually swarm, and sit your Trajan Ethelfled back off to the side, back to the city. Okay, so we're going to go over 3 different scenarios. The first one is if you have an archer. So if you are a huge Kraken and you have 3 archer marches, well, excuse me, then this is going to be fairly easy. Okay, you're going to bring the 1 through 6 that I've already talked about. So you've got Guan Skippy, Nevsky with Justinian, Zhuge Liang with Herman, Boudica with Asher, Tariq with Sargon, Huo with either, I guess, your Justinian or your Minamoto, and then you could pair your Nevsky with Joan, etc. I've already talked about those. And then you're going to bring your Henry and your Gilga. Okay, so the Gilga does actually provide a pretty decent skill damage debuff. I think it's like 15%. Here, where is it? Clearly I don't use Gilga very often. Yeah, the blood craving does actually, yeah, target takes 15% more skill damage. And if you are just so happen to be swarming something that does heal, this will do an absolutely crazy amount of damage. And then obviously you bring your Henry off the bench if you weren't using him already. And in another scenario, if you are swarming cities and you're using the Boudica or your Henry with Boudica combo, then you can just bring your Asher Benepal with Gilgamesh. Either way, it's the 3 sets, or it's the 6 commanders here that I have on the screen, but the variations are really up to you. Now, if we are using, let's say, 3 Cavs, well, this also gets pretty easy, all right? So you have your XY and your Mina, okay? So not super hard. You're gonna run XY with Mina. You're gonna run Huo with your Justinian, which I have all the way down here because this is not organized enough. Where is Justinian? There he is. All right. And then you're going to run the old classic Nevsky and Joan. Okay, this gets pretty simple, right? Like 7 marches. Once you're doing 6 different commanders of one type, it gets a little easier to find out what pairings. So if you're using the 3 Cav setup, Nevsky, Joan, Huo with Justinian, and XY with Mina. Now, you can think about subbing in your William. The truth is, William is not that crazy for swarming flags and or cities. Now, if they're using like a YSG garrison, you know that William is probably pretty good to make it so that they don't get that skill damage increase. But a lot of times you are now swarming Gorgos. They have no skill damage at all, so the William really isn't needed or necessary. And now, lastly, we have the infantry. And this is actually pretty easy as well. Nothing super absurd. You're just going to bring in your Gorgo to swarm. I know, your classic garrison commander that can also swarm. And you're going to be running something like this, okay? So you're going to be bringing in the Gorgo Liuche or the Liuche Gorgo, whichever combo you prefer in that regard. And then you're still going to be running the Guan Skippy and the Tariq with Sargon. So again, pretty complicated stuff. Now, as some general guidelines for swarming, I I can't recommend anyone swarm with a march that doesn't have full legendary gear, right? So just for instance, like this set would do really well swarming. This set, I'll swarm a flag with. This set, I'll swarm a flag with, right? But when we're getting to sets like this, okay, like I'll swarm it, but I'm not like loving it, you know? And I'd say similarly, if you are not Mex Tech, I would prioritize the actual swarm team to go out there and swarm the flag. Now, that being said, okay, the whole situation that I have just lined up for you, you are only going to use in two different scenarios, okay? One, you are invading a zone of somebody that you know is not very strong. You're going to random teleport into the zone. You're going to start zeroing farm accounts, okay? That's one time that you're going to go with a preset of swarm marches, and you're just going to do as much damage as possible, okay? And then time number 2 is when, say, you are trying to burn an objective, and you sit your marches off into the side. Now, I don't really have a good example to show you here, right? But say, for the sake of, I don't know, example, all right? We're just going to say that we were trying to burn this flag. Well, I would then bring out my swarm marches, have my teammates clear the field up here. When the rally connects, I would then move in, and then I would begin to swarm, okay? The pairings that I have just laid out for you, while they might not be the worst in the field, they are definitely not the best. They are strictly meant to swarm a flag. Another thing, as soon as you're swarming flag, I would not recommend staying on flag past about 40 to 50% of your march's health. You're going to start just trading really poorly, and hopefully you have more swarmers behind you that can get on that flag and do a lot more damage than you will. So you're going to trade better, and you're going to deal more damage. It's just kind of like a win-win. All right, well, I hope you learned something. You know, I really didn't expect this video to go over so long, but I really do think that I am trying to explain my thought process behind the commanders that I'm bringing, as well as the in-depth guide as to what you're bringing with 5 marches, what you're bringing with 6 marches, and what you're bringing with 7 marches. Now, some of those things are conditional, like what are you swarming? Are you swarming a Gorgo? Are you swarming a Heracles, right? Like what can you bring? Are you swarming a city? All these things matter. And I'll just be frank with you, maybe like 80% of the times that I swarmed a flag in this KvK, I just had my field marches out there. We had the ground. I didn't have time to recall my troops, and I just swarmed with my field marches, okay? This was a very niche video for maybe a very niche audience, but I hope that if you are somebody who random teleports around and gets to swarm cities every once in a while, and or are part of a designated swarm team for your kingdom, that you can watch this video and hopefully get some nice tips and tricks. Now, there is a high chance that you don't have every commander in this video. Hell, I don't have every commander in this video. I'm still working on my Asher. I don't have Henry. I don't have Justinian, right? So in a lot of those situations, you can find replacements like, okay, well, I don't have Asher. I'll use my YSG. It'll do fine, okay? Or, oh, I don't have my, whatever it's called, Justinian. I can just use my Minamoto and my Joan Prime. They're going to do just fine. In fact, usually my whatever is paired with my Nevsky usually trades the best when I'm swarming flag. That's just how it goes, right? And, you know, similarly for any infantry or archer pair, like I would say that Sargon is pretty important, so you probably really want that. But either way, you know, just take all this with a grain of salt. I think that we're all not going to be perfect, but we can try our best, right? We can try our best. Anyway, thank you guys for sticking around. I know that I've been terrible with the videos, but the truth is it's hard to be in KvK, prioritize my account growth, win a zenith, you know, be part of leadership, and then at the same time produce videos and have a real life and go on vacation soon. So, you know, we're struggling, but we're also enjoying life a lot right now. Anyway, guys, I hope you learned something, and I'll see you guys around the next one. Peace.